Hello my loves, and welcome back to my channel. Now today's video has taken me so long to work out what I want to say and how I want to express my opinion on this matter. Now we've all seen the very negative news about the NHS and working for it all over the media recently, and we've also seen a lot of very influential people on the internet leave the profession or consider leaving the profession. And after so many messages from you guys asking how I keep going, whether I've ever considered quitting, and also just telling me how scared you are to start your medical career, I knew it was time that I shared my side of the story. But before we get into it, if you are new here or haven't already subscribed, what are you doing? Make sure you click that little button now to come along on my very crazy journey through medical school, with a lot of highs but equally as many lows, and just a little insight into my life, and soon to be a third year medical student at the University of Birmingham. And also, if you do like the sound of today's video, make sure you do give it a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel out and just means that I know you're enjoying these kind of videos. Now it is very, very obvious that the NHS isn't perfect, and especially post-pandemic, everyone working there and the system itself is under immense stress. I am fully aware that every job has things people would change, and unfortunately often people aren't happy, but it can be so hard to find the positives in a system which takes such a huge emotional toll on your life and expects so much from everyone working for it. However, there are loads of videos, books, TV shows that you can go and watch to find out all about the challenges faced, and I don't just want to sit here and list off all the things that need changing. Ultimately, what I want to do is give both sides of the story, what made me think about quitting in the first place, and ultimately why I've made the decision that I have. Now, to be honest, I can't quite believe I'm sat here even making this video, because when I started medical school, there really was no doubt in my head that this was what I wanted to do. Now, I'm not going to lie and say I was 100% sure about my decision, because I'm never 100% sure about anything. I'm a chronic overthinker and really do think everything through to the very last details, and the one thing I was really worried about was what an intense career path it was, and also how hard it was to find a real work-life balance. However, I was still so set on my decision and knew that I would just make everything work along the way. So headed off to medical school, so excited about it all, and then bam, first year hit, and it was such a strange year because this was peak pandemic. We had all online teaching, hardly anything was on in person, and it was so hard to gather whether I was actually enjoying myself during my first year, because my experience really just was so strange. Then, with 2 sets of online open book exams passed and under my belt, I started second year as a completely fresh start. And to be honest, I really enjoyed my first term of second year. It was so nice to have in-person teaching for the first time. So many more events were on, and to be honest, university life just felt so much more normal. I was really enjoying my modules, and throughout the whole of medical school, I've really loved the content that I learn. I find it so interesting to learn about the human body, and to be honest, I think it is such an honour to thoroughly understand how our bodies work. But I also love the moral side of medicine and the difficult decisions that have to be made, and also really getting involved with the social side of medical school for the first time. MedSoc events were back up running, and I was getting to know the whole of my cohort in person for one of the first times. Then the Christmas break came up, and the thought of having my first in-person exams for 4 years was approaching. Now at Birmingham, we have 50% of our exams after Christmas and the other 50% in May, and they both contribute equally to whether or not we pass the year and progress. Now, to be quite honest, I was finding the thought of these exams very overwhelming. I knew they were my first real chance to prove that I deserved my place at medical school, so I set out with hundreds and hundreds of hours of revision ahead of me, cracked on and worked my very hardest towards these exams. However, yet again, COVID struck, and this was when the new variant of COVID swept across the UK, and a week before we were due to sit our exams, the medical school decided to put them all online and open book again for everyone's safety and because of all the uncertainty. And to say I was relieved would be an understatement. Yes, I'd worked my absolute socks off, but I feel like I'd really underestimated the sheer amount of content and how much there was to learn. So I was so happy to have that safety net of online exams again. But after these and actually finding them okay, it meant that I went into second term already on the back foot and feeling a little bit burnt out from mainly overstressing and a little bit overworking during the break and just towards these exams. And second term at Birmingham has a huge reputation of being one of the hardest, because not only do our main modules jump up and get a lot harder, we also have 2 big assessed essays during that term, as well as the end of year exams being very hard and also having a huge anatomy pro section exam at the end. So there is a lot of pressure going into that term placed on us. And I was very daunted by it all, so just set out to work my absolute hardest, and that is exactly what I did. I worked and worked and worked and said no and no to more social events, started skipping more of those really important days off to squeeze in more work, and also doing this little and often revision strategy that everyone has told me about. And what was the result of this? I was so unhappy, and by the time it ended up being March to revise for my next set of exams, I literally felt like I hadn't stopped all year. But what I set out and did anyway is this thing that I do, which I'm really trying to break the habit of, but I like to hermit during exam season and basically see as little friends as possible, do as little things not related to exams as possible, and focus all of my time and energy onto my exams. And after nearly a couple of months of doing this, I vividly remember my birthday morning, which is the 7th of May, 2.5 weeks before my first in-person exam was due. I literally just broke down in tears to my parents as a result of being overly tired, because I wasn't sleeping very well from stressing about these exams. I was overworked, I hadn't really seen many friends, and I also had this whole lovely weekend ahead of me planned to enjoy my birthday, but I just felt so guilty about not revising. And I really just broke down and started questioning it all. If medical school was this hard, I needed to work this hard just to pass my exams, I couldn't understand how on earth I was going to cope with the pressures of being a doctor, the immense amount of stress that is put on them, and whether or not it was all worth it in the end. I wanted to turn my back on everything that I'd worked so hard for and quit medical school. However, that all being said, I didn't quit, I didn't give up, I passed my exams, and I am still here. And that is because of one big action that I took. And after another really wobbly week of questioning everything, I sat myself down and wrote a list of all of the reasons that I love medicine and I wouldn't give up on my dreams. Now, yes, it is still and will always be a very intense career. No one told me it was going to be easy, and we all know that going into it, but some of the hardest things in life really are the best. I've learned an awful lot this year, and how not to let myself get to that place again, which I mentioned a little bit in my results day video, but that is the real truth of how low I got and how close I really was to quitting. But before I get onto my list, I quickly want to speak to you about today's sponsor, which is actually Skillshare. Now, I'm sure you've heard me speak about Skillshare before, but for those of you who haven't, it is an amazing online learning community with literally thousands of classes on topics including design, photography, productivity, and so many more. Skillshare is for anyone from complete beginners to absolute masters on the topic, with so many classes to fit around your schedule. Now, the key to not getting burnt out and actually enjoying your life whilst at medical school is having an effective note-taking and revision technique, and that is why this month's class that I've absolutely been loving and want to share is Ali Abdal's class on how to study for exams using evidence-based techniques. I love continuously improving and finding the best techniques to boost my productivity, and Skillshare is the perfect place to learn this. But this is just one of hundreds of amazing classes on Skillshare, and the best part is the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, but make sure you're fast so you don't miss out. So top on my list is your sense of purpose, and like I said, I am a huge overthinker, and I always worried about going into a career where I would look back and feel like I hadn't really achieved anything with my life. So I went into selling pens. All I've really done is pushed and done my best to sell that pen for the biggest profit profit, and I would look back and feel like I'd made no real difference. Whereas with medicine, ultimately your whole purpose is to save as many lives as possible and to make the best impact on your patients' lives as you can. And for me, saying that your whole job and career has been about helping others get through some of the hardest points in their lives makes everything worth it and really gives your own life purpose. This next one I've written down is very adulty of me, but that is job security and the fact there will always be a need for doctors. Now, in a world which can be very unstable at times, knowing that I'm going down a stable career path with jobs at the end is really important to me. There is still a huge shortage of doctors and medical staff, which means that it's not going to be really hard for me to go out and find a job, and just makes me feel a lot more settled knowing that at the end of my degree and medical school there's almost like a career path laid out for me. It means that I don't need to worry about my career, finding a job, whether I'm going to be employable, and just means that I worry less about that side so I can worry more about other things instead. Number 3 I love, and that is that medical school is amazing. Now, people say that 5 years is a very long degree, but honestly I don't think it is long enough when you're around such incredible people. I feel so lucky to be in a community of such like-minded people, and I really do learn a lot from other medical students and just being around that kind of environment. I always say medical school really does have the word school in it for a reason. I feel like it is very different to some other degrees and people's university experience because it is that much more intense. It means that you get that real community, family feeling, and as cringy as it sounds, you really do learn and grow so much about yourself. Yes, it can be very intense and slightly toxic at times, but most of the time it's just filled with incredible opportunities. The medical school societies throw the best events, even if I am being slightly biased, but we just all have such a fun time and make amazing memories along the way. The next one is simple, and that is that it is a great degree which opens so many doors. As someone who has always loved science and people, the medical field is huge and an amazing industry to be part of. There are literally so many different specialties and avenues to go down that there is something for everyone. And say worst case scenario, you don't take the conventional route and become a doctor, you are so employable with a medical degree, and the world really is your oyster to find whatever suits you best and a career that makes you happy. The next one is that is universal, and you really can go around the world with your career. No matter what background or country you're born into, everyone has healthcare problems and the same human body, which gives you the opportunities to see the world, experience different healthcare systems, and really be a true part of so many different communities. It's honestly one of the few careers where you can pick up and go around the world. Not only is it often easier to get a visa as a working medical professional, through gaining different qualifications, somehow you can often literally live anywhere. And finally, a huge one is to give something back to society. Probably almost everyone at some point in their life will need a doctor. I myself have had some share of my time spent with the doctors, some bad experiences, some good experiences, and I just want that opportunity to be that doctor that people remember as being kind and patient with them and putting a smile on their face, even if it's the very last thing they feel like doing. I know through my career I'll see things that people can only imagine. It will humble me and show me the true values which are important, which are your health, happiness and love. So those are just a few things on my list of many, but comment below one thing that keeps you going through your career when times get tough, so we can all inspire each other to not quit or give up. But I really hope you did enjoy today's video. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did, it means so much, and have an amazing rest of your week everyone, and I'll see you so soon in my next one. Bye!